The Cathmori battle fleet stretched across the void like a constellation of death, their crystalline hulls reflecting the distant starlight and prismatic cascades of blue and violet. Admiral Zelthara stood on the command deck of the flagship Eternal Dominance, her 4 eyes fixed on the tactical display showing the pathetic human defensive line ahead. 300 of humanity's finest warships hung in formation around their homeworld of Terra, looking like toys compared to the massive Cathmori dreadnoughts. "Look how they arranged themselves," chuckled Commander Vexran, his voice carrying the distinctive harmonic undertones of his species. "Like children playing at war. These mammals actually believe they can resist the hegemony." Zelthara's mandibles clicked in amusement. The Cathmori hegemony had conquered 47 species across the galaxy, each one falling within cycles once their fleets arrived. Humans would be no different, despite their reputation for stubbornness. Intelligence reports suggested they possessed crude fusion drives and basic energy weapons, technology the Cathmori had surpassed millennia ago. "Begin the intimidation protocol," she ordered. "Let them see what real power looks like." The lead squadron of Cathmori vessels activated their displacement drives, vanishing from their positions and reappearing just outside the human defensive perimeter. The maneuver was perfectly executed, designed to demonstrate superior technology and demoralize the enemy. Across the fleet, officers clicked their mandibles in satisfaction. But something was wrong. "Admiral," called the sensor operator, her voice tight with confusion. "The humans, they're not responding as expected." Zelthara's eyes narrowed as she studied the tactical display. The human ships had indeed reacted to the displacement maneuver, but instead of falling back in panic or sending desperate communications, they had simply repositioned. Their formation tightened, ships moving with a precision that spoke of extensive drilling and iron discipline. "Perhaps they're too primitive to understand what they just witnessed," Vexran suggested, though uncertainty flickered in his voice. "No," Zelthara said slowly. "Send them the standard surrender demand. Let's see how they respond." The communication was transmitted on all frequencies, translated into the crude human languages. The response came within minutes, delivered by a grizzled human male whose image appeared on their screens. He wore a simple blue uniform with insignia that marked him as some sort of military leader. "This is Admiral Marcus Chen of the Terran Defense Force," the human said, his voice steady and unimpressed. "You have entered our territory without permission and issued threats against our people. You have 30 seconds to alter course and leave our system, or we will consider your presence an act of war." The bridge fell silent. Then Vexran burst into harmonious laughter, soon joined by other officers. The sound filled the command center like breaking crystal. Did this mammal just threaten us?" Vexran gasped between laughs. "With what? Their metal shells and chemical rockets?" Zelthara didn't laugh. Something in the human's eyes troubled her, a confidence that seemed unwarranted given the tactical situation. She had seen that look before, in the eyes of prey that had claws hidden beneath soft fur. 30 seconds have passed," Admiral Chen's voice crackled through the comm. "Consider this your final warning." "End transmission," Zelthara ordered. "Begin the demonstration. Target their outer defensive grid, disable, don't destroy. We want some survivors to tell others of Cathmori might." The fleet's main guns began charging, their exotic matter containment fields building to lethal intensity. Targeting systems locked onto the human vessels with predatory precision. But as the first salvo was about to fire, every sensor in the Cathmori fleet screamed in unison. Something massive had just entered the system. "Admiral!" The sensor operator's voice cracked with shock. "New contact, bearing 0 Mark 7. Distance, how is this possible?" "Report." Zelthara snapped, her attention torn between the charging weapons and the impossible readings flooding her screens. It's enormous, Admiral. Larger than our entire fleet combined. It just appeared. No displacement signature, no energy buildup, nothing. It's as if it materialized from nothing. The main view screen shifted to display the newcomer, and Zelthara felt her blood turn cold. The ship, if it could even be called that, defied every convention of spacecraft design. Where Kethmori vessels were elegant spears of crystal and metal, this was something altogether different. Dark hull plating seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, broken only by patterns that might have been weapon ports or sensor arrays. It was impossibly large, easily dwarfing even the hegemony's largest dreadnoughts. Classification unknown, the sensor operator continued, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm reading massive energy signatures, but the patterns, they don't match anything in our databases. And Admiral, it's human. The bridge erupted in shocked chittering. Impossible. The intelligence reports had been clear, humanity was a young species with limited technology. They had barely mastered interstellar travel, let alone the construction of vessels like this. You're certain? Zelthara demanded. The emission patterns match human technology signatures, but evolved. As if they've made advances we thought impossible. Admiral Chen's face reappeared on their screens, but now there was something different in his expression. Not smugness or triumph, but something far more unsettling, regret. Last chance, he said simply. Leave now, and we'll pretend this never happened. Vexran leaned forward, his earlier amusement replaced by unease. Admiral, perhaps we should reconsider. If the humans possess technology we don't understand. Absolutely not, Zelthara clicked firmly. One ship, no matter how large, cannot stand against an entire fleet. They're bluffing. She opened a channel to all ships. All vessels, concentrate fire on the unknown human vessel. Maximum power. What followed would be remembered as the moment of silence. 300 Kethmori warships fired in unison, their exotic matter beams converging on the dark human ship like the fingers of an angry god. The combined firepower could have shattered a small moon, turned a space station into molecular dust, or boiled away the atmosphere of a planet. The beams struck the human vessel's hull and simply vanished. Not reflected, not absorbed in any way they could measure, they simply ceased to exist the moment they made contact. The massive ship hung in space, completely unharmed, as if the most devastating attack in Kethmori history had been nothing more than flashlight beams. Impossible, Vexran breathed. No armor can withstand that kind of focused fire. It's not armor, the sensor operator said, her voice hollow. I'm detecting massive gravitational anomalies around their hull. They're manipulating spacetime itself. The energy is being redirected into dimensional folds. Zelthara stared at the readings, her mind reeling. Dimensional manipulation was theoretical even for the Kethmori, requiring technology so advanced it bordered on magic. How had these primitive mammals achieved such mastery? The human ship began to move, not with the sharp acceleration of conventional drives, but with the smooth, inexorable motion of something that had simply decided to be elsewhere. As it approached, more details became visible on their screens. The hull wasn't just dark, it seemed to exist in a state of controlled spatial distortion, making it difficult to focus on. Admiral Chen, Zelthara found herself saying, though she hadn't consciously decided to open the channel. What is that ship? The human admiral's expression softened slightly, and for a moment, he looked tired. Something we hoped we'd never have to use. The TDF Prometheus is our insurance policy. A ship built not for conquest, but for survival. Impossible. No single vessel could threaten an entire fleet. Admiral Chen was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of terrible knowledge. Admiral, you're about to discover something about humanity that we've kept hidden from the galaxy. We're not the primitive species you think we are. We're just very, very good at pretending to be. As if to emphasize his point, the Prometheus began to change. Additional hull sections extended from its core like flowering petals, each one bristling with weapons that had no place in any database. Energy readings spiked to levels that should have been impossible to contain, let alone weaponize. We've been watching the Kethmori hegemony for years, Chen continued conversationally. Studying your tactics, your technology, your weaknesses. We know about the 47 species you've conquered. We know about your expansion patterns, your resource requirements, your political structure. We know everything. Zelthara felt ice forming in her veins. You're suggesting you've been spying on the hegemony? Not suggesting. Stating. Did you really think a species capable of reaching the stars couldn't manage basic intelligence gathering? We've had observers in your territory for decades. Some of them are probably serving on your own ships right now. The implications hit like a physical blow. If humans had infiltrated hegemony space, if they had been studying Kethmori technology and tactics for years while presenting themselves as primitives. What do you want? Zelthara asked, her voice barely steady. Peace, Chen replied simply. We want to be left alone. Humanity has no interest in conquest or expansion. We have everything we need in our own systems. But we also won't tolerate aggression against our people. And if we refuse? Admiral Chen's expression grew cold. Then you'll discover why we called this ship Prometheus. In human mythology, Prometheus stole fire from the gods and gave it to mortals. This ship represents fire we stole from the universe itself. The sensor operator suddenly looked up in alarm. Admiral. Energy readings from the human vessel are approaching critical levels. Whatever they're powering up, it's drawing energy equivalent to a star's core. Zelthara looked at the tactical display, seeing her 300 ships arrayed against this single impossible vessel. Pride warred with pragmatism in her mind. The hegemony had never retreated, never backed down from inferior species. But everything about this situation defied the natural order. You have 60 seconds to begin moving your fleet out of our system, Chen said quietly. After that, the choice will be taken from you. Admiral, Vexran whispered urgently, perhaps we should consider a strategic withdrawal. We can return with additional fleets, more firepower. Zelthara almost agreed. Almost. But then she thought of the 47 conquered species, the reputation of Kethmori invincibility, the political consequences of retreat. She was about to give the order to withdraw when fate intervened. A young officer at the communications station looked up with excitement. Admiral. I'm receiving a priority message from the High Command. Admiral Korthak's extinction fleet is 3 hours out and closing fast. 5,000 ships, including the super dreadnought World Eater. The announcement sent a wave of renewed confidence through the bridge. The extinction fleet was the hegemony's ultimate weapon, sent only when complete annihilation was required. 5,000 ships versus one, no matter how advanced, seemed like reasonable odds. Zelthara straightened, decision made. Transmit to the human ship. Tell Admiral Chen that he has impressed us with his technology, but the hegemony's full might is approaching. Surrender now, and we will grant his people the honor of serving the hegemony as a client species. Chen listened to the transmission with an expression of growing sadness. When he replied, his voice carried profound regret. Admiral Zelthara, I'm going to ask you one more time to reconsider. What's about to happen isn't justice or conquest. It's simply necessity. We do not yield to threats from primitives, she replied firmly. I was afraid you'd say that. Chen looked down at something off-screen, then back up. Computer, initiate Prometheus protocol. Authorization Chen Alpha 77 Tango. The change was instantaneous and terrifying. The Prometheus didn't just power up, it transformed. What had appeared to be a single massive ship revealed itself to be something far more complex. Sections of the hull peeled away like an unfolding origami crane, revealing internal structures that defied geometry. Space around the vessel began to ripple and distort as gravitational fields beyond comprehension took hold, and then every sensor in the Kethmori fleet went dead. Not destroyed, not jammed, simply severed from reality as if the universe itself had decided they no longer deserved to see. In the span of heartbeats, 300 of the most advanced warships ever constructed became blind and deaf. What's happening? Zelthara demanded, but her crew could only stare at blank screens in mounting horror. When the sensors flickered back online moments later, the universe had changed. The Prometheus was no longer a single ship but a constellation of interconnected vessels, each one larger than a Kethmori dreadnought. They hung in space like geometric flowers, connected by streams of energy that pulsed with the rhythm of a cosmic heartbeat. "Admiral," the sensor operator's voice was barely human with shock, "I'm reading massive quantum fluctuations throughout the system. They're not just manipulating space-time, they're rewriting the fundamental laws of physics in localized areas." Before Zelthara could respond, every ship in her fleet shuddered as if struck by an invisible hand. Not damaged, not attacked, simply moved. In the span of seconds, her entire armada had been relocated to the very edge of the solar system, 30 billion kilometers from their previous position. A new transmission came from Admiral Chen, but now his image flickered and distorted as if transmitted through dimensions that shouldn't exist. "Your extinction fleet will arrive in approximately 2 hours and 57 minutes, he said calmly. "I suggest you use that time wisely. Contact them and tell them what you've seen here. Tell them that humanity offers peace, but will not accept subjugation." Zelthara stared at her instruments in numb disbelief. An entire fleet transported across a solar system in seconds. Technology that could rewrite physics on a whim. The implications were staggering. "Admiral," Vexran said quietly, "what are your orders?" She looked at the tactical display showing her fleet's new position, then at the impossible human vessels still hanging in orbit around Terra. Every instinct screamed at her to fight, to maintain hegemony, pride and superiority. But beneath that, a colder voice whispered of species survival. "Open a channel to Admiral Korthak," she said finally. "Priority 1 classification." As the transmission began, Zelthara found herself wondering if the Kethmori hegemony had just encountered its first equals in the galaxy, or something far more dangerous. The humans had demonstrated technology that bordered on godlike, yet they asked only to be left alone. The question that would haunt her dreams was simple: what else were they hiding? Admiral Korthak studied the holographic projection with growing disbelief, his massive frame casting shadows across the command center of the super dreadnought World Eater. The transmission from Zelthara played for the third time, showing impossible images of human vessels that defied every law of physics he understood. "Computer, analyze transmission for evidence of tampering or falsification," he rumbled, his voice like grinding stone. "Analysis complete. Transmission is authentic. No evidence of alteration detected." Korthak's forearms flexed unconsciously, a gesture that had once preceded the destruction of entire worlds. At twice the size of most Kethmori, he had earned his position through a combination of tactical brilliance and absolute ruthlessness. The extinction fleet under his command had never failed to complete its objectives. "Sir," called his tactical officer, a nervous younger male named Dekrin. "Admiral Zelthara's fleet remains at the system's edge. They haven't moved in over an hour." "Show me the human homeworld," Korthak ordered. The main display shifted to show Terra hanging in space like a blue jewel, its 300 human defenders still maintaining their defensive formation. But now something else shared that space, the transformed human vessel that Admiral Zelthara had called the Prometheus. Even from this distance, its otherworldly geometry was clearly visible. "Energy readings, sir. Off the scale. Whatever power source they're using, it's generating more energy than our entire fleet combined." Korthak was silent for a long moment, processing the implications. In his 3 centuries of service to the hegemony, he had never encountered a situation quite like this. The humans claimed to want peace, yet possessed technology that could apparently relocate entire fleets at will. It suggested either supreme confidence or a level of power that made military action irrelevant. "Open a channel to all ships," he finally ordered. "All vessels will maintain maximum distance and defensive posture only. No aggressive maneuvers without my direct authorization." "Sir?" Dekrin looked confused. "Our orders are to establish hegemony dominance through overwhelming force." Korthak's gaze never left the tactical display. "Our orders assume we face conventional opponents. Nothing about this situation is conventional." As the extinction fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the system's edge, the universe seemed to take notice. Every human ship in the defensive line simultaneously adjusted its position with mechanical precision, while the Prometheus began to shift its configuration once again. New sections extended from its core like unfolding wings, each one crackling with barely contained energy. "Admiral Korthak," came a transmission from the human homeworld. The speaker was the same grizzled human from Zeltharos reports, "Admiral Chen. I was hoping we wouldn't meet under these circumstances." "You know of me?" Korthak asked, genuinely surprised. "I know of all senior hegemony commanders. As I told Admiral Zelthara, we've been watching your people for quite some time. Your reputation precedes you, 43 planetary extinctions, 200 billion casualties across 17 systems." The casual recitation of his military record sent an unexpected chill down Korthak's spine. These humans had been studying the hegemony in detail while presenting themselves as primitive newcomers. "Then you know that the extinction fleet has never failed in its objectives," he replied. "I also know that you've never faced anything like what you're seeing today." Chen's expression remained calm, almost sympathetic. "Admiral, I'm going to make you an offer. Turn your fleet around, return to hegemony space, and report that humanity is not suitable for conquest. In exchange, we'll share some of our technology with your people." The audacity of it was breathtaking. A species that supposedly barely possessed faster-than-light travel was offering to share technology with the galaxy's dominant civilization. "And if I refuse? Then I'll be forced to demonstrate why the Prometheus exists." Korthak studied the human's face, searching for signs of deception or bravado. What he found was something far more unsettling, the quiet confidence of someone who held all the cards and regretted having to play them. "Sir," Dekrin called from the sensor station, his voice tight with alarm. "I'm detecting massive gravitational distortions throughout the system. Something is interfering with our hyperspace engines." "Clarify." "We can't leave, sir. Something is preventing our ships from entering hyperspace." The implications hit like a physical blow. Not only did the humans possess overwhelming defensive capabilities, but they could trap entire fleets in normal space. It suggested a level of technological mastery that should have been impossible. "Admiral Chen," Korthak said carefully, "are you holding my fleet hostage?" "I'm ensuring we have time to reach an understanding," Chen replied. "Admiral, may I suggest a face-to-face meeting? There are things about this situation that require explanation." Against every protocol and instinct, Korthak found himself nodding. "What do you propose?" "Send a small delegation to one of our orbital stations. I'll meet you there personally, along with some of my senior staff. No weapons, no military escorts, just a conversation between leaders." Korthak considered the offer. Military doctrine demanded he refuse, maintain distance, and probe for weaknesses. But something in Chen's tone suggested that conventional military thinking might be inadequate for this situation. "Very well. I'll bring my senior staff." 2 hours later, Korthak materialized on a human orbital platform that defied every expectation he'd formed. The architecture was elegant yet functional, with sweeping curves that seemed to flow like frozen music. What startled him most was the gravity, perfectly calibrated for Kethmori physiology despite the platform's obvious human construction. Admiral Chen waited in what appeared to be an observation lounge, its transparent walls offering a spectacular view of the transformed Prometheus. Standing beside him was a young human female in a scientist's uniform, her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. "Admiral Korthak," Chen said, rising from his chair with surprising grace for a member of such a supposedly primitive species. "May I present Dr. Sarah Martinez, our chief xenotechnology specialist." Dr. Martinez stepped forward, and Korthak was startled to realize she was looking directly into his eyes without fear or discomfort. Most species found Kethmori intimidating on a visceral level. "Admiral," she said, inclining her head respectfully. "I've studied your tactical innovations extensively. Your victory at the Theta Centauri engagement was particularly brilliant." The casual reference to a classified military operation confirmed what Chen had claimed earlier: human intelligence gathering was far more sophisticated than anyone had realized. Dr. Martinez has been our primary liaison for non-human contact, Chen explained. She's uniquely qualified to explain our situation. Korthak settled into a chair that automatically adjusted to accommodate his massive frame, another sign of their technological sophistication. Then please, explain. How does a species that supposedly discovered faster-than-light travel only decades ago possess technology that can rewrite physics? Dr. Martinez exchanged a glance with Admiral Chen, who nodded almost imperceptibly. Admiral, what I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest levels of human government. The truth is, humanity didn't develop this technology. We found it. Found it? Approximately 50 years ago, we discovered the remnants of an ancient civilization in the asteroid belt of our home system. The beings who built it had vanished long before humans evolved, but they left behind technology so advanced it might as well be magic. She gestured toward the observation window, where the Prometheus continued its impossible dance through folded space. Everything you've seen today is based on artifacts we're still trying to understand. The Prometheus isn't just a ship, it's a barely contained fragment of technology that predates known galactic civilization by millions of years. Korthak felt his world shifting beneath him. You're claiming to have access to precursor technology? More than access, Chen said quietly. We've become its inheritors. The beings who created it left behind not just machines, but knowledge. Genetic locks that only activated when humanity reached a certain level of technological development. That's impossible. The precursors are a myth. Dr. Martinez smiled sadly. Admiral, 3 hours ago you would have said that relocating an entire fleet through space-time manipulation was impossible. The universe is far older and stranger than any of our species realized. As if to emphasize her point, the view outside shifted as the station's position adjusted itself automatically. In the distance, Korthak could see his own fleet, powerful vessels that suddenly seemed quaint compared to the technology surrounding him. Why are you telling me this? He asked. Because, Chen replied, we need the galaxy to understand something. Humanity doesn't want to conquer or dominate. We've seen what the precursor technology can do in the wrong hands. We've spent 50 years learning to use it responsibly, to ensure it never becomes a tool of oppression. Dr. Martinez leaned forward, and Korthak was surprised to see genuine concern in her human features. Admiral, the Kethmori hegemony has built an empire on military superiority. But what happens when that superiority is challenged by technology you can't understand or counter? The hegemony adapts, he said automatically, though uncertainty colored his voice. Or it destroys itself trying, she replied gently. We've run the projections, Admiral. If the hegemony continues on its current expansion path, it will eventually encounter other inheritors of precursor technology. Species that might not share our restraint. The implications were staggering. If humanity was telling the truth, then the entire balance of galactic power was based on outdated assumptions. The Kethmori hegemony's dominance relied on technological superiority that could become obsolete overnight. What do you propose? Korthak asked finally. Admiral Chen stood and walked to the observation window, gazing out at the stars. A new paradigm. Instead of conquest and subjugation, cooperation and mutual benefit. The hegemony has administrative and organizational skills that humanity lacks. We have technology that could revolutionize life for every species in the galaxy. The High Command would never agree to such an arrangement. Then perhaps, Dr. Martinez said quietly, the High Command needs to understand what they're really facing. Before Korthak could respond, the space around them exploded into activity. Klaxons wailed as every sensor in his fleet screamed warnings simultaneously. Through the observation window, they watched as space itself seemed to unfold like a flower. What emerged defied description. Ships, if they could be called that, appeared one by one, each one larger and more impossible than the last. They moved through dimensions that shouldn't exist, their hulls reflecting light from stars that couldn't be seen with normal vision. What is that? Korthak breathed. Dr. Martinez's face had gone pale. That's the Terran Deep Fleet. We hoped we'd never have to reveal its existence. The approaching vessels made the Prometheus look small by comparison. Dozens of them, each one a masterpiece of impossible engineering. They took positions throughout the system with casual precision, creating geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. Admiral Korthak, came a transmission from his flagship. We're detecting massive hyperspace distortions. Whatever those ships are, they're generating enough energy to affect subspace throughout the sector. Chen turned back to his guests, and for the first time, Korthak saw something like sadness in the human's eyes. I'm sorry you had to see this. We've spent 50 years trying to find another way. Another way to what? To protect not just humanity, but every species in the galaxy from what's coming. Admiral, the precursors didn't vanish by choice. They were destroyed by something that makes our ships look like children's toys. And it's still out there. Dr. Martinez activated a holographic display that showed the galactic arm, with various species territories marked in different colors. We call them the Devourers. They consume technology, absorbing and repurposing it for their own use. Every few million years, they sweep through the galaxy, harvesting advanced civilizations. And they're coming back, Chen added grimly. Our projections suggest they'll reach this sector within the next century. Korthak stared at the display, mind reeling. You're saying that all of this, the Prometheus, your deep fleet, everything, is preparation for a war with entities we've never even detected? Not war, Dr. Martinez corrected gently. Survival. The precursors tried to fight them and failed. We're trying a different approach. Which is? Unity, Chen said simply. Every species in the galaxy working together, sharing technology and resources. The Devourers are powerful, but they're also predictable. They target advanced civilizations individually, using divide-and-conquer tactics that have worked for eons. But if every species in the galaxy was united, sharing precursor technology and coordinating defenses, we might have a chance, Dr. Martinez finished. It's our only chance. Korthak looked out at the impossible fleet surrounding them, then back at the two humans who had just rewritten his understanding of the universe. Everything he thought he knew about galactic politics, military strategy, and species relations had just been turned upside down. And the hegemony's role in this, unity? Admiral Chen smiled for the first time since their meeting began. Leadership. The Kathmori have centuries of experience managing diverse populations across vast distances. You have organizational structures that humanity lacks. Together, we could create something unprecedented, a true galactic confederation. Dr. Martinez added, Admiral, I've studied Kathmori culture extensively. Your people value honor, efficiency, and the protection of those under your authority. These aren't primitive values, they're exactly what we'll need to survive what's coming. For a long moment, Korthak said nothing, processing the magnitude of what he'd learned. Then, slowly, he stood and walked to the observation window. His fleet hung in space beyond, 5,000 ships that represented the pinnacle of Kathmori military might. They looked so small compared to the human vessels surrounding them. If I agree to this, he said finally, if I return to the High Command with this proposal, it will mean the end of the hegemony as we know it. Yes, Chen agreed quietly. But it will also mean the beginning of something far greater. Korthak turned to face them, and Dr. Martinez was surprised to see something like hope in his alien features. Very well. I will carry your message to the High Command. But Admiral Chen. Yes? If your projections are wrong, if this unity you propose fails to materialize, what then? Chen's expression grew serious. Then humanity will do what we've always done, Admiral. We'll adapt, we'll survive, and we'll protect those who can't protect themselves. As if summoned by his words, the Prometheus began another transformation, its impossible geometry shifting into configurations that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Watching it, Korthak realized he was witnessing the birth of a new age, one where the old rules no longer applied, and survival would require cooperation instead of conquest. The age of the hegemony was ending. But perhaps, just perhaps, something better would take its place.